Hey saddle hunters, today I am debuting to you the Cruzr Archon. This is Cruzr's entry into the two-panel saddle market. I was really excited to check this out because it took me a while, but I finally tried the Cruzr XC and found that I really loved it. It's got what I call easy comfort. It's one of those saddles that you can just sit down in and most people can be comfortable in it. But I've really come to appreciate the adjustability and just the variety of ways that you can wear and use a two-panel saddle. So I was super excited when I heard that Cruzr was going to be launching the Archon, their two-panel saddle, and I think that it has struck a good balance between a lot of the features that guys are looking for in a two-panel saddle. I think you'll really be impressed, so I'm going to walk you through kind of its build and its construction and its features, and then I'm going to talk you through a little bit about how I found to use it. We're going to talk through some of the positives, some of the few drawbacks that I've noticed with it, and hopefully give you a good idea of what to expect from the Cruzr Archon. So let's jump in here. We'll talk about some of its features first. So there's some similarities between this and the XC as far as the build and the construction. You'll notice that this uses the same mesh and the same frame, so to speak, that the XC does. And similar design with the molly loops. You have wider open molly loops at the top, and then you have flat molly loops on the top of the bottom panel. Of course, this is a two-panel saddle. You can see that the bottom panel is much larger than some other designs that are on the market. You'll notice that there's a lot of similarities between this and the Latitude method. The biggest difference between the two is the size of that bottom panel. And for me personally, that makes a big difference when I try to sit in the saddle. I think it's a lot more comfortable. Let's talk about sizing for a second. This is a size 1 saddle. It's 10 inches from the bottom to the top of the bottom panel, and then the top panel is 5 1/4. The bottom panel is 24 inches wide, and then the top panel from where the straps connect is about 22 inches wide. The bridge is adjustable from basically 0 all the way out to 38 inches as you see it right there. You can see that the panels adjust differently than the Latitude method as well. They're held together with these little quick release buckles, and to adjust the saddle you pull those up and then pull down on the saddle. These are pretty tight, but that can be a good thing. I'll talk you more through that in the tree, but they hold it in place. You don't have to worry about that bottom panel kind of sagging down at all. When they're in a position that you like, they'll stay there. So hopefully you can see there's the two panels. They basically have a wider webbing on the top and the very bottom, but then in the top of the bottom panel and the bottom of the top panel, there's 1-inch webbing, and all 4 pieces of those webbings converge on the lineman loops. You can see there's the wider one, there's the smaller one, and same thing on the top here, and they come and make the bridge loops. Now, to me, the bridge loops feel a lot like the XC. I don't notice a whole lot of difference in them at all. The lineman loops are very similar to the XC. Of course, they just open and close, and the depth of the panel is really limited only by the depth that the lineman loop can stretch. So that's about as far apart as those two panels can go. I'll show you that more in the tree. I do not have leg loops for this, or leg straps for this saddle yet, rather. They're still working on getting those pieces, but they're a G-hook design and they're removable. So they attach there on the bottom, and then on the top panel you can see where they'll hook on, and they're a G-hook with kind of a spring retainer, so they close. So that's a nice feature. I like that style a lot. You can see on the inside of the saddle here that it uses a waist belt that runs straight through the middle of the top panel. Another thing to notice about the top panel, hopefully you can see that, is that it's kind of shaped like a football. It's got that curve on the top and on the bottom. Same thing with the bottom panel. It has that football shape to it too. And in my experience, guys, in all the saddles I've tested out, that curve on the top and on the bottom makes a huge difference when it comes to comfort. So that's something that I look for in a saddle. If it doesn't have a curve, especially on the top, I'm really not even going to spend my money on it. So I look for that feature and I appreciate it. I think it makes a big difference in comfort. The waist belt's similar to the XC. I believe it's the same webbing. A little bit different though. When you bought the XC, you got the option to choose bridge and to choose what buckle you wanted. With the Archon, it comes standard with the Austria Alpen Cobra buckle that's ANSI rated. So this is a really, really good buckle. One thing I've noticed is that the webbing slides through it pretty easily, and sometimes I've noticed it'll kind of work loose on you here or there. So that's just something to keep in mind. I think Chad has told me that they're working on getting a different webbing for the waist buckle to kind of prevent that. But the other thing that's standard on this model that wasn't standard on the XC, that was an upgrade, is the Amsteel adjustable bridge. And this, in my opinion, is the best bridge I've ever used. It cinches down super, super tight, and it's really easy to adjust up and down the bridge loops. One of the complaints I had with the method was that those prusik knots really didn't adjust very easily up and down the bridge loop. But these, and I'll show you it in the tree, but they adjust super easily up and down those bridge loops. So I like that a lot. But that's most of the design and the construction of the Cruzr Archon. Let me put it on and I'll show you kind of how some of this stuff works functionally and how it wears, especially for the walk-in. So let's see that now. All right, so I've got the Archon on, and I just wanted to point out a few things about it when you're wearing it that I have noticed. The first is that, kind of like the Cruzr, the waist belt is not attached all the way to the front, okay? So those first few MOLLE are not really supported by the waist belt. The other difference about this than a lot of other saddles on the market is that the waist belt sits below the MOLLE webbing. And at first I kind of thought that that might lead to some sag, and I'll show you with the pouch on it, but the most it does is kind of fold over like that. It doesn't collapse or anything, so that's not something to worry about. The Amsteel bridge is just awesome, and let me show you why I like this. Look at this. You can tighten it down all the way, pulls those bridge loops in nice and tight, and this saddle becomes super, super streamlined. The lineman's belts are right where I like them. They're wide, they kind of stick out, they're easy to use. The saddle rides pretty high. Hopefully you can see that. Obviously it's not as high up as the method because it's got more material to it, but it doesn't impede your legs. It sits above the bottom of my butt there, so really out of the way, which I like a lot. And this saddle, guys, it doesn't weigh much at all. Without the leg straps, mine is a size 1. It's 1 pound and 10 ounces. I mean, that's the same weight as the Tactus saddle. I think the only couple saddles I've tested lighter than that are the Phantom, the Menace, or the Mantis rather, and the Recon. So this is super, super light, especially given how much support you have from that wider bottom seat. So I like that a lot. I want to show you kind of how a pouch functions on this, and so let me put a pouch on and we'll show you that. I've got my typical hunting pouch on here. All that's in here is my tether and my lineman's belt, and I've got it in the wider, more open MOLLE loops right there at the top, and you can see it kind of pulls it open a little bit, but when you cinch that bridge all the way down, it's not flopping around. It holds it in there pretty tight. And if you use those ones, it holds it up pretty high, so it's not banging around on your leg when you walk. Let me just show you, if I were to have the bridge there looser, you can see it kind of pulls that one side away. Notice this one didn't really move at all, but this one kind of pulls away. That's because the waist belt doesn't support those last few sections of MOLLE. But for me, I'm never gonna walk around with it uncinched. That to me is one of the major selling factors of this saddle, is that it's so easy to get in tight and streamlined, and so that's how it's going to run. Works great for me. I'm going to take it off and put it on the lower MOLLE section and show you guys that. So I've got the pouch on the lower section of MOLLE here, And I like that. It's a little bit more out of the way. The only thing I've noticed is that when it's on that lower section, and keep in mind I have the bottom panel raised all the way up, so that's as high as it can go. When it's on that one and I'm walking around, you tend to notice a little bit of that slight banging into your leg. It's not a big deal, but it's just something to point out. I don't notice that it hits my leg as much when it's sitting up here a little bit higher. There's also a difference I've noticed between the two when you wear the saddle in the tree. So let me show you that now. All right, so biggest difference I've noticed in the tree happens when you kind of have the top panel riding, like I have it now, into your lower back for a little low back support. So when the pouch is on the lower, it's really out of the way. It's down low, it's not up in where my hand is. But if I move it up onto this top one, I found it to be a little bit cumbersome and kind of in my way. So let me show you that now. So there it is higher. I mean, it's still below my ribs and stuff, but you can see it's kind of like right there where my hand is, and I found myself hitting it some. So just something to be aware of. But let me take it off now, and I'll show you guys a little bit about how I've found to use this saddle in the tree and talk you through how to adjust it to find the best comfort for you. All right, so let's jump in and talk a little bit about function now. First thing I want to talk about is the adjustment straps between the two panels. So these are positioned in a pretty good location. They're not too far back. They're really easy to access. I would say the only problem with having them there, they're positioned after the third section of molly, which is good because if you've got a traditional dump pouch, that gives you enough room to mount your pouch in front of the adjustment buckle. The problem is if you've got a pretty big dump pouch, your dump pouch kind of might hang over the adjustment strap. So that's just something to keep in mind. In order to adjust the saddle, I found that these are really stiff to move. So you almost have to use two hands to adjust them. So I can't, if I stand up, spin around, and try to pull up and push down with my thumbs, you can see it's just not super easy or quick. That's a whole lot more time than I would want to spend doing that. So what I have found is that you need to use two hands. So you just stand up and pull it up, pull the bottom one down, turn around to the other side, pull it up, drop the panel. So it drops pretty easy. The nice thing about them being stiff is that you don't have to worry about it accidentally slipping on you. If you get it in a position you want, let's say you decide you like the panels, I don't know, 5-6 inches apart, let's say. If you are sitting in your saddle, you find that to be super comfortable, and you stand up, because you're confident that they're not moving on you, when you go to sit back down, they're going to be right where you want them to be. So there's a plus and a minus there. You have to adjust them with both hands, but they'll stay and you don't have to worry about them sliding. So that's how the adjustments work. Same thing I've noticed to pull them back up. You really got to use two hands. Just lift up, pull down, lift up, pull down, and it snugs them right up in a good position. So they work well. They're just a little stiff, and I imagine they'll loosen up a little bit with time. So now let's talk a little bit about leaning in this saddle, because I know everybody's going to be curious about that, because it seems to be the preferred method. So a lot of different ways you can hang in this saddle, guys, and that's what I love about a two-panel. You can make it fit your style. So I'm going to highlight some of the ways I've found comfortable to use it. Play around with it, because you might find other ways just as comfortable. So a lot of people are going to ask, well, can I use it just like a single panel? So right now I've got those panels cinched up all the way, and I've got the waist belt just above my belt, like I would run your Cruzr XC. And if I lean back into that, I can certainly lean in it. I mean, it's not uncomfortable by any stretch of the imagination. I would say you can kind of feel these straps overlap a little bit, and I feel like the top panel sometimes will fold over when I just sit down like that, but you can do it. Not my preferred way. I prefer to give it some distance between those two panels, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it, so I'm just going to let all the length out for demonstration purposes, so I can easily move those panels. So the way I found that I like to do it is to take that bottom panel and just kind of position it right over my butt, all right? And then the top panel can kind of come up into your lower back. Now this is where the bridge loop adjustment is super nice. When I'm leaning, I like to have a little bit more pressure up in my back. And these are so easy to adjust, guys. You literally just push them and they adjust. And when I'm leaning in it, you know, maybe 1.5 inches from the top of the lineman loop, and that's really, really good. You get really good back support, and it cups your butt. This, I think, is going to be a really comfortable position for a lot of guys. But the downside of this, as I pointed out with the latitude method, is that this makes the top part of the bridge loop run pretty high up, and so it can kind of impede if you're using a hand muff, or if you want to take jackets on and off. It can be kind of a bear. So you can also run this so that the top's a little bit lower, and that's where you can use the adjustment to control how it kind of rides up. So let's take this back in to about 3 to 4 inches, I think was the neighborhood I found it to work really well in. Same thing with that bottom panel. Gonna put it right so my butt just sits in it nicely. And there, I've got really good support now, still in my lower back. The bottom panel is just cups my whole butt really well, but it's lowered the top down some. So that works really good. If I brought my tether down the tree, it would probably even come down a little bit more. So just a lot of options, guys, for leaning in this saddle, and I've found it to be very comfortable. I like the bottom panel because it kind of just cups your whole butt. You know where it needs to be. It just, you put it there and it feels right. Now you can run it a lot lower too. Let's say I run the thing so the top panel is really underneath my butt. Slide the bottom panel up. I can lean like that too, and it takes it all the way down low. Here I would probably rock these forward a little bit to get a little bit more balanced pressure. You can fold that bottom panel up, and you can lean like that too. So there's just a lot of options when it comes to leaning in this saddle. Just play around with it, and you'll find something that works for your hunting style and for the comfort that you're looking for. So let me show you how you can sit in this saddle, and this is where the rubber meets the road to me when it comes to saddles. So I think this one excels when it comes to sitting compared to some other two-panel designs on the market. So let me show you that now. All right, so let's talk about sitting. I struggled with the latitude method when it came to sitting. I just had a hard time dialing it in, and people's mileage may vary, so don't flame me, but I find this one, because of the larger bottom panel, to be a lot more comfortable for a variety of sitting positions. So right now I've got the bottom panel situated pretty much right under my butt, and the top panel is in my lower back, and that's comfortable. I feel good support from the bottom panel, but in this particular position, the top panel isn't really doing a whole lot for support. So if I gave it a little bit of length and adjusted these so that they pulled a little bit more toward the top, probably so they're about 1.5 inches away again, I can get not only support under my butt, but I get good back support. So this is comfortable. If you're a guy who likes the Cruzr but you wish you had a little bit more back support, the Archon's really going to shine. I mean, I can lean. This is almost like sitting in a lazy boy. I mean, you just got really good back support. If you like leaning back, this is going to be a really good position for you. Let me show you another way now. I like to have the saddle when I'm sitting pretty much completely underneath me. And I don't like this so much for sitting because when I go to shoot, it restricts my movement. The bridge sits up pretty high. My top half is connected to my bottom half. So let me show you how you can position the saddle completely underneath you. So in order to do this, I like the bridge right in the middle of both bridge loops. And then I take the top panel and position it kind of right under my butt. And you'll feel it when it's in the right spot. The bottom panel then, I like to basically snug right up next to it, and I can dial into the tree. And now, nothing is restricting my top. I can pivot around really easily and shoot all the way behind me without a whole lot of movement. And that's what I really like about having the saddle low. That's why I like the ESS, that's why I like the Recon. And this saddle, you can do the same thing. I really struggled to do this in the method in a manner that I found comfortable. So one thing about this position I found though when I was playing around with it, you really have to get the bridge in the right position on the bridge loop, or else you're not going to be comfortable. So I can stand up and give it a little bit more toward the bottom strap, and I feel more pressure across my hips. That's why I said I found it to be better, like right in the middle. Nice balanced pressure seems to work good for this position for me. So I like that a lot. You can also kind of go somewhere between these two positions, not totally underneath you and not so high up into your lower back. If I take the bottom panel, put it underneath my butt, and leave that kind of, you know, three inches or so apart, I don't get that really good recliner feeling, but I'm not as restricted either. And I feel pretty well supported underneath my butt. So a lot of options with this saddle, guys, when it comes to both leaning and to sitting. Now, a couple of things I've noticed that you want to make sure you don't do. One of those is make sure that you do not get this 1-inch strap across your hip joint. Let me see if I can show you that. So right there, that strap is coming basically right across where my joint is, and that's a ton of pressure and incredibly uncomfortable. You just don't want to do that in this saddle. You either want to put the lower panel below onto your legs, or like I recommend, just make it so that that joint comes right between the two straps, and you'll have a ton of comfort. That's really the only thing that I've found in this saddle that you need to watch out for. So let me give you a few more thoughts here. So I wanted to talk about how far the panels can separate. So I'm going to stand up, drop these all the way down, pull out all the length. So you can see that can go down quite a ways. I mean, I can put that lower panel all the way into my upper thighs, the top of the panel in my upper thighs, and still pull the top into my lower back. Now you can see the lineman belts are totally straight at that point, but that's more than enough adjustment, in my opinion, for everybody on the market. So I don't think that that's anything to be concerned about whatsoever. One other thing I wanted to show, you know, sometimes guys put their saddles in their packs for walking in and they don't wear them. And some guys are concerned about two panels because they think, hey, it's going to be a lot of extra fabric. Look at how small that two-panel saddle folds up. You could very easily put that in a fanny pack and it wouldn't, you know, be a big deal. So folds up super compact. Another bonus feature of the Cruzr Archon. So that's a little bit about how the Cruzr Archon functions. Let me just wrap up by giving you guys some of my concluding thoughts about this saddle. As most of you know, if you follow the channel, I have tried and have owned every single two-panel saddle that's on the market. You've got the Tree Hopper Recon, the Eberhart Signature saddle, you've got the Latitude Method, the Overwatch Outdoors Transformer, and now the Cruzr Archon. And in my opinion, the Cruzr Archon does a lot of things very, very well. I don't think there has been a perfect two-panel saddle up until this point. I love the Recon. It's super minimalistic. The panel sag in the thing drives me nuts. This saddle, like the Method and the ESS for that matter, carries weight really, really well. I love the comfort of the ESS and the Overwatch Outdoors Transformer. They're supremely comfortable. But for some guys, they don't like the metal D-rings, and they don't like the clanging and the potential for noise. This saddle has one buckle on it and a couple tiny G-hooks. Noise is not going to be a factor, so that's another bonus. I liked the Method. It carried really, really well when you wore it into the woods. You know, it was high, it was streamlined, it cinched down really good, and it was light. This saddle, I believe, is the same weight as the Latitude Method, at least in the size 1, and I think it carries just as well. Yeah, the bottom of it's going to hang down a little bit more than the Method, but for me, that's not hardly something I even notice when I'm walking. So I think this saddle carries in extremely, extremely well. I think it's got a ton of versatility to it. You can lean in a variety of positions. You can sit in a variety of positions. I found it to be really comfortable almost every way I tried it. Yeah, like every saddle out there, there's some things you got to watch out for. Make sure the straps don't go across your hips. You know, adjust along the bridge until you get the pressure how you want it. I can't even begin to express how important of an adjustment this is. I wouldn't even waste my time on a saddle anymore that didn't have adjustment along the bridge loop. That's how important of a feature I think that is. And this moves up and down those bridge loops super easy. And sometimes it's just a 1/4 inch and it makes all the difference in the world. So I really love that adjustability feature. I think it adjusts easier in that manner than the Latitude Method did. The bridge loops are really well done. The one complaint, again, same thing as the Cruzr. This buckle is a fantastic buckle, but with this webbing, it seems to come loose, especially if it's not under pressure. If you're in the tree and you've got it, you know, a little bit loose for sitting down, it has a tendency to walk its way open. So that's one downside that I've noticed with this saddle. Other than that, I really like the size of the bottom panel. I think it's easy to get it, you know, in the right spot. It basically covers your entire butt and provides a great comfort doing that. I don't find the need to, you know, put it in a bunch of different positions to get it right where I want it. It's easy to put it where it needs to be for comfort. That being said, you can move it up, you can move it down. I demonstrated that. There's a lot of adjustability in this saddle. So I think it's an excellent offering. I'm super impressed with it. I think it picks up a lot of the shortcomings of some of the other 2-panel saddles on the market and does a whole bunch of things really, really well. And I wouldn't expect a whole lot less from Cruzr after trying the XC. So if you have any reservations about the Archon, I would say give it a try. It's fantastic. And if you're looking to jump into the 2-panel saddle world, this is another great offering. Stay tuned to the channel. I'm going to do a comparison between the Cruzr XC and the Archon and talk you through the pluses and minuses of both of them. Stay tuned too. Next week we're going to be doing a review on the brand new Slingshot 2.0 from H2 Saddle. So I'm excited to walk you guys through that, but it's a great offering, guys. Thanks for watching. If you wouldn't mind, take a minute, click the like button below and subscribe. I really appreciate your support. And once again, thanks for watching the Saddle Hunting channel here on YouTube.